Like, open the oven door first. Oh my gosh. Every once in a while I have something on a sheet tray and I'm like, oh, I can do this one-handed. And then the whole thing goes sliding. Such a disaster. Hi, I'm Genevieve Ko in the NYT Cooking Studio, and today we're making pumpkin cheesecake. The filling is creamy and pumpkin-y, and for this one in particular, I really wanted to bring in all those warming spices that I really love, and the surprise spice in here is that there's actually turmeric in the sour cream topping. It adds this other layer of flavor to the top, and it also makes it this beautiful sunny gold color. So this pumpkin cheesecake is part of a big package that we're doing this Thanksgiving for you with 9 new pie recipes. As we were trying to figure out which pies we wanted to do, one of my editors asked, is cheesecake a pie? It's not a simple yes or no. It's not like a hot dog is not a sandwich, right? Just categorically, a hot dog is not a sandwich, in my opinion. A New York style cheesecake, not a pie. That's in a category of its own. But for me, for Thanksgiving, I absolutely think that there is a type of cheesecake that I think is probably more accurately called a cream cheese pie that definitely belongs on the table. And I think what makes a difference too is that the filling isn't super dense and it's not at all cakey, it's just creamier like a pie filling. And after a lot of back and forth, we didn't go with like a standard cheesecake, like a straight up cream cheese flavor, though we thought about it, and decided instead to go with pumpkin. All right, so the first thing we need for our graham cracker crust is graham crackers. You definitely want to make sure you get rid of all the big cracker chunks. All right, and in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and melt the butter for the crust. So one thing I like to do is just dump the whole stick in there, and then I use the butter wrapper to cover the bowl, because if you don't do that in a microwave, your butter could pop and explode and then you have a huge mess in your microwave. So anytime a recipe calls for butter to be melted and cooled, including my own, if I haven't taken the time to cool it, what I'll do is I'll like melt it to this point where there's still some solids, and I'll just stir those few bits of solids back in because they are cooler and then they're gonna cool down the hot butter. And then in the meantime, this butter wrapper, which I used to keep my butter from exploding all over the microwave, did get pops of the melted butter, which means that it's nice and greased. So I'm gonna use that to grease my pie plate. The next thing I'm gonna add is super important to a graham cracker crust. It's a whole teaspoon of salt. I know a teaspoon seems like a lot, but in a graham cracker crust, oh man, I love that saltiness that you get in there. And then we're just gonna drizzle the butter. You want this to definitely have that like wet sand feel. And then I'm just gonna throw it all in the buttered plate. So I'm just gonna spread them into an even layer. I'm gonna start to make a little rim and push the crumbs that I want and need up along the sides. And then I'm just gonna press it really firmly. And you do want it to be really firm because the filling is wet and you don't want it to like seep into a loosely packed crumb crust. And that's it. This is ready to go in the oven. You want it to get golden brown around the edges and especially around the top, and the bottom should look and feel dry and be just a shade darker. So I start checking at 10 minutes. So while the crust is in the oven, we're gonna go ahead and start on our cream cheese filling. I've had this cream cheese out here for a bit, but just in case it isn't soft yet, or even if it is, it's gonna be the very first thing I beat all by itself. I grew up in a home where we had big Thanksgiving feasts, but we didn't always really know what we were supposed to make or serve because my parents actually immigrated here from Hong Kong and we were always happy to celebrate. But definitely nobody knew how to bake pie. And we weren't even sure what pies we were supposed to get. So we just got our favorites from Marie Callender's, which was the one restaurant in our Southern California hometown that sold pies. And my favorite one was their cheesecake, which I think might actually be called a cream cheese pie. I'm gonna look and see if my crust is ready. Yeah, so now I can see the top has that nice golden brown edge. We're gonna turn it down to 325. So if you don't like having alcohol in your baked goods, totally fine. If you're cool with it, brandy to me is just a really nice fall flavor. It's just a nice addition to the mix. And I always beat eggs into a small bowl because when I don't, inevitably there's like a bit of shell, which is super annoying So we're gonna go ahead and pour this in. And you don't want it to go to the very top because you're still gonna have your lovely sour cream topping. And then we're gonna just put it right back in. I actually want to get the sour cream topping ready now because I really want to add the sour cream at room temperature to the cheesecake. So it's totally fine for it to sit out because it actually makes it easier to pour on and spread and smooth. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get my sugar in this bowl and I'm gonna tint it with ground turmeric. It's a really wonderful flavor, but one of the things it does too is it adds gorgeous color. And the reason I'm adding it first to the sugar is I'm gonna want this color to be really even. And powdered turmeric, especially if it's fresh, has a tendency to clump. So this is just straight up sour cream, which I just love the tanginess that it brings to a cheesecake. So you can see right away, this sour cream is already becoming this lovely gold color. So when you first finish stirring this, you might be tempted to add more turmeric because you might think, oh, this is not very golden at all. This is not the color I want. The amazing thing is that as it sits, it's actually going to become a deeper and deeper color. And once it goes in the oven, it's actually, the color is going to pop that much more. So just be patient. So we're going to check and see if this is done. Well, this is what I want. And it's puffed. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this over here. I could have probably kept going because there's like a little bit of shine here, which means it's not quite as dry as I want, but you know what? It's totally fine. Again, at this point, it's definitely cooked to the degree that you want it to be. So we're gonna go ahead and add this sour cream topping. I'm just gonna carefully and gently pour it. But if you just dump it all in the middle, and if you dumped it like really heavily, it would weigh down the middle a bit, and I know this from experience. And if you were a smarter person than me, you wouldn't have scraped every last bit of that sour cream in here because it is now threatening to spill over the edge, which you don't really want to do. If you're in this scenario, one thing you can do is take some out. We definitely don't want to overbake it because then it'll crack. We just want to help it set and stick to the pie and develop a really nice texture. So we're not actually going to decorate it now, but we're going to go ahead and get the decorations ready. So I slice these candied ginger into these really thin slices. They're super pretty, and you can just go ahead and put them on the pie like this, but they're really sticky. So I'm just tossing it in the tiniest bit of sugar. I don't really want them sweeter. I just don't want them sticking to each other or my fingers. So you can see it's amazing how over time the color just gets deeper and deeper. So you get this gorgeous golden color. So yeah, you can just toss on these candied ginger strips. All right, ready to taste the cheesecake. I just love how it's cheesecake that is not quite as dense as your usual cheesecake because it has the pumpkin to lighten it up, and all those spices really work, especially with the turmeric on top, leading you right into the cinnamon and ginger and cardamom. It's just like the perfect Thanksgiving bite. So whether or not you think that cheesecake counts as pie, you definitely should make this just because it's so tasty, regardless of how you want to think of it. But if you really feel like you need to have pie that is pie, we have 8 more brand new recipes on NYT Cooking of Thanksgiving pies just for this season. I mean, it's not just for this season, like hopefully you'll bake them for years to come. They're new this season. They're new this season.